Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, the Flight Sim community. This is Viper Strike 95. And today, guys, we're here in the beautiful state of Vermont. I hope you're all having a great day. Happy Friday to you guys here. And what a beautiful scenery is out here today, guys. We're in Vermont. Yes, the beautiful scenery of Vermont, New Hampshire is definitely incredibly underrated among the U.S. states. But yes, if you guys aren't aware, Vermont is the first state to be admitted to the Union that was outside of the original 13 colonies. And it was the 14th state of the Union. It is one of the smallest states in the area and one of the least populated as well. But despite that, though, Vermont is also a pretty successful state for GDP per capita. I hope you're all doing well here today. And I know the weekend's coming up, so we're going to do some flying around Vermont today. We've got some really cool scenery and stuff as well to check out. So before we get started, I do want to say hello to the chat. We have Super Typhon, good to see you here, and hello to all the lurkers in chat. It's great to see you guys as... So we're actually going to be doing some flying here in Vermont, of course. So here's our nav map for today's flight plan here in Vermont. So we're going to travel first from Morse Field, Victor Tango 41. We're going to go through and visit Brattleboro here. From Brattleboro, we'll head west to Bennington. And we're going to fly along Hillside. We'll fly through Hilding, the Lincoln family home, the Hilding, or make our way over to our first stop here at Rutland Southern Vermont Regional Airport. Then from there, we'll go ahead and head to Rutland. Then we're going to cut through Green Mountain National Forest and make our way up to our next stop here at Edward F. Knapp State Airport in Barr. And it's right next to the state capital, Montpelier. Then from there, we're going to go Montpelier, the state capital. We'll visit Stowe, a very well-known resort town. And then from there, we'll head to the largest city in the state, Burlington. We'll check out Burlington, fly around here, and make our final stop at Burlington International Airport to wrap up the stream here. Should be a beautiful flight plan, and I think we got the perfect plane for this flight plan. We're going to take this Lynn Savage Cub. Now, we took the Savage Ultra. So this Savage Cub is based more off of the Super Cub. It looks similar to a Piper PA-18 Super Cub, but it's made by Zlin, not Piper. But like I said, it's just capable as a Super Cub. So, and if you guys aren't aware about the plane, it's based off the PA-18 Super Cub. This ended up being an insanely popular bush plane. Over 10,000 have been built, and these Super Cubs are super common, and most importantly, they're super versatile. You can make it for speed, floats, big wheels, and like I said, they can do anything. Take off from extremely short distances. Great planes in general. And for many, your bush plane career starts with these guys. We're going to go ahead and fill up our tanks. And the nice thing is, like all Cubs, they are really easy to turn on. And get started. Really easy. Pretty easy plane to get ready to get going. Here are these mighty Cubs. We're on the Southeast Asian server, and we're going to Southeast Asian server, and we're going to taxi down to 03. We're in Virginia. So Brattleboro will be our first city. We'll be flying over for a bit. And the nice thing about the Sun Savage Cub is its takeoff performance and extremely short takeoffs. Because it is your classic supercomp. This. Bro. Not much runway at all for the Cubs. They don't need runway. Of course, there's no autopilot, so I'll have to manually fly this thing today. So the city of Brattleboro, this town located 10 miles north of the Massachusetts state line, population 12,000 people. And this town is actually very important to the history of Vermont as a gateway for trade on both the Connecticut River and the road and train infrastructure. Also, this area allowed for the development of several mill industries in the town, including several bookbinding companies, which one of them being the Brattleboro Typographic Company, which produced Bibles, and the Esley Organ, one of the largest manufacturer of pipe organs in the world at the time. However, they shrank during the 20th century, and nowadays it's more for its tourism industry. Tourism is more of a deal here in this city, mainly for its events and art galleries. And they got many different events. There's also beautiful parks and stuff too here in the city. But it's been very important for Vermont's history. And believe it or not, at one point, British author Rudyard Kipling settled here, actually, too. Pretty fun fact. Fly over the town of Brattleboro pretty soon. Yeah, this is a beautiful state, Vermont. Just like New Hampshire. New Hampshire, Vermont, again, kind of get overlooked. They're not like the rest of the New England states. I think they deserve. What a beautiful state. Now, if you guys want to know what this looks like during the fall season, I'm going to show you guys what it might look like. Just to show you guys what it might look at that, though. Looks great during the fall colors. So once we get in the air, we'll talk a little bit about the U.S. state of Vermont once we get to the air. Here is the little community of Brattleboro. I mean, this is a fantastic little bush point for the trip. Here's down. I mean, beautiful area though. Scenery here is stunning. What should be expected from Vermont? We're gonna try and cruise up to the first leg being around. I guess we're gonna cruise the first leg to around 5,000 feet. Let's talk a little bit about Vermont for a bit for the slideshow, guys. So Vermont is one of the small states in the Union, the first state to be admitted outside of the original 13 colonies. Vermont is actually the second least populous state in the country. The only state less populous than this is Wyoming. Yes, Wyoming is actually less than Vermont. However, it's also the nation's sixth smallest state. And its state capital is the least populous of all state capitals. In fact, no U.S. state has the most populous city with fewer residents than Burlington. So, yeah, it is not very populated. But one of the nice things about Vermont not being so populated is the fact it's relatively green with a lot of nature and stuff. And it's marked by the famous Green Mountains, which has played a big part of Vermont's history, of course. It is the least economically active state with only $40 billion in 2022. However, its GDP per capita is 21st. And it's known for its progressivism, being one of the first to recognize same-sex civil unions and marriage, the highest proportion of renewable electricity generation at 99%, and is one of the least religious and least racially ethnically diverse states in the country. Most important sectors are definitely dairy, forestry, maple syrup, and wine. In fact, Vermont produces half of the U.S.'s maple syrup production as a result. So Vermont definitely is a very interesting state for that purpose. So when talking about Vermont, we have to talk a little bit about its history, of course. There isn't too much history, surprisingly. It's actually been a pretty quiet state. But in terms of its native history, the first people to come into Vermont was around 11,000 years ago, with the glaciers of the Ice Age receding. Small groups of hunter-gatherers followed herds of caribou, elk, and mastodon through the grasslands of the Champlain Valley. At the time, much of it was mixed tundra. By more than 8,000 years ago, the Champlain Sea began the freshwater Lake Champlain. The temperature in the climate was more temperate, bringing increased diversity of flora and fauna. And it began the start of the Archaic period. Of course, over time, people developed fishing equipment and stone cookware and woodworking. And much of the state's territory at the time by the native tribes was occupied by the Abenaki people, while the southwest parts were inhabited by the Mohicans, and the southeast by the Pocumtuck and the Pennacook peoples. Around 3,000 years ago, the woodland period began, which food became more domestic plants like maize, beans, and squash, and agriculture meant dispersed hunting gathering towards larger settlements. During the arrival of European explorers in the 1600s, and marked the end of the woodland period and the beginning of the Abenaki people. Around that time, there were about 10,000 indigenous people, which is now Vermont, of whom 75 to 9% were killed by European diseases. Survivors moved north to New France or similarly with European settlers. So as a result, there are no Indian reservations in the state. And only 0.2% of live births in Vermont in 2021 were to American Indian people. You can still find pieces of the pre-Columbian era from artifacts, as there are around 750 prehistoric sites in the state, but few have been excavated by archaeologists. So there's definitely a bit of history. There just isn't too much to cover here. There isn't too much to be. The first Europeans to come visit this area is 1609, when Samuel de Champlain led his first European expedition to Lake Champlain. He named it after himself and made the first known map of the area. The land that's now Vermont remained part of New France until 1763. Yes, Vermont was actually part of the French between those times of New France. The French had a military presence around the lake since it was a port waterway, but did very low colonization area, mainly with Fort St. Anne. The English had made several unsuccessful attempts to take the area in the 1600s. However, that changed with the Treaty of Paris in 1763, and Vermont became part of the province of New Hampshire and New York, both laid claim to it. So both New Hampshire and New York laid claim to it. as a result of the Treaty of Paris. And this area became pretty well known for settlement, as this area became pretty active for settlement. And New England was overcrowded, so many of those from New Hampshire and New York settled here. New Hampshire government, with Bang Wentworth, auctioned land around this area where land was Champaign, became the New Hampshire grants, and there are eventually 135 of them, including one of those being Bennington, we will be actually heading towards pretty soon. So, of course, in 1764, King George III proclaimed the territory and jurisdiction of New York from New Hampshire. However, New Hampshire grant owners didn't have legal title, while New York continued to sell large tracts of land, which overlapped those that are inhabited, which led to the dispute of Ethan Allen, forming the Green Mountain Boys, which was an elite militia that attacked New York settlers and speculator. They eventually repelled the New Yorkers and went on with Benedict Arnold to fight in the American Revolutionary War, where they captured Fort Ticonderoga. Briefly during this time, as well, in 1777, Vermont had a bit of independence in 1777 of Vermont, called the Republic of New Connecticut. Eventually, and they adopted the name Vermont to the Constitution in 1777. It becomes the first written constitution to ban adult slavery. However, eventually they were involved in the Revolutionary War in the Battle of Bennington. They attacked the Hessian colony of Hoosick, New York, and they captured or killed the entire Hessian detachment with the Americans. Along with the Battle of Saratoga, recognized as the turning point of the Revolutionary War because they were the first major defeat of the Army. Of course, after the war, and of course after the American Revolution, Vermont actually became a sovereign entity for 14 more years based in the eastern town of Windsor. Eventually, however, it became its own state and eventually became part of the Constitution as the 14th state in 1791, becoming the first state to admit it outside of the original 13. And of course, before the state of Kentucky. So that's pretty important news. Of course, outside of that, though, Vermont was pretty quiet for the most part. Though officially state law was abolished slavery in 1858, 3 years before the American Civil War, and Vermonters provide refuge at several sites for slaves fleeing to Canada on the Underground Railroad. Of course, during the Civil War time, some Vermonters became abolitionists, one of those being Thaddeus Stevens, who is one of the leaders of the Radical Republicans during this time after the Civil War, and he became one of the leaders of the Reconstruction movement. During the American Civil War, Vermont sent 33,000 troops to U.S. service, where more than 5,200 died, which is more than 15%. And in Vermont, actually one of the northernmost land actions of the war actually occurred in the state of Vermont. St. Albans Raid, which is a robbery of 3 St. Albans banks, perpetrated in 1864 by Confederate agents, and they pursued Confederate raiders into Canada. Eventually, they got captured before it turned to Canadian officials. But it still happened, of course, which is pretty funny that Vermont was where you found the most northernmost things of the U.S. Civil War. Of course, after the Civil War era in the mid-19th century, Vermont attracted a lot of Irish, Scottish, and Italian immigrants. And they mainly migrated to Barr to work for granite. That's because Vermont is the Green Mountain State, but granite has been historically part of its industry. And many new immigrants assimilated into the state, and they mainly integrated pretty well in the state. During the political changes, Vermont actually approved women's suffrage as well, for decades before it became national part of the Constitution. Of course, Vermont also passed a couple of other laws, like a eugenics law that sterilized patients as well. Then they also were involved with the 1964 Supreme Court decision Reynolds versus Sim. And finally, during the 21st century, Vermont became one of the first. It was the first state to introduce civil unions in 2000, and the first to legalize same-sex marriage in 2009. It also became the first state to legalize cannabis for recreational use. So, yeah, pretty big deal as well. It's a very progressive state. Hey, Big Boss Robinson, good to see you, my dude. Hope you're doing well. We're here in the U.S. state of Vermont. A little state in the Northeast. It kind of gets overlooked as well, like along with the other states here in New England. So here's a shout out for your big boss. He does a lot of streams. He streams Flight Sim, but also other games. I've seen him play Metal Gear Solid, the namesake of his channel, but also Counter-Strike, Marvel Rivals, and others as well. So definitely check him out. Yeah, we're in Vermont. We're going around through the Green Mountains, funnily enough. So all this area around here is the Green Mountains. It's what gave Vermont its namesake. It's the namesake nickname. And they go through all around Vermont's borders. Really cool stuff. And they got several points in Vermont. The highest is Mount Mansfield. Highest point. Yeah, the Green Mountains are pretty up here in Vermont. I know it's got a bit of snow. But if you want to imagine what this looks like with fall colors, you can always change the fall color. I mean, we want to keep it this, so I'm going to keep an accurate date. This is what the Green Mountains would look like during the fall season. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that for scenery, guys. That's. Oh, no worries waiting on pizza. No worries, my dude. So I got a question for all you guys in the chat. I know I only stream one day next week due to vacation. So what do you guys want me to do on the Wednesday? Do you guys want me to do? Do you guys want me to do the Wednesday stream being? Do you want the Wednesday stream being the normal VA stream, or do you want this upcoming Wednesday to be one of the 50 states? Because if that's the case, and you guys want me to do the 50 states, we will be doing Tennessee on that Wednesday. I guess that's probably what I want to do. I'm going to do the 50 states for Wednesday, since I think that would be a really good idea. That way we can do the 50 states if it means. I think we'll do that one next Wednesday. But beautiful area here in Vermont. I know it's kind of a little bit snowy right now. Vermont's definitely pretty cool. So the next area we'll be visiting today is Bennington. Yes, the Gray Gray divisions. Let's see a Gopnik. Yeah, I'm gonna do the 50 states Wednesday, so that'll be next week. I do want. So this is Bennington. Good to see ya. Bennington. This state is one of the two shire towns of Bennington County, along with Manchester. In 2020, it was 15,000 people. It's the most populous town in southern Vermont and the second largest town in the state. This is most home to the Bennington Battle Monument, the tallest human-made structure in the state. Yes, that's right. This is the tallest man-made structure in the state. Not known for a lot of tall stuff. It has a long history with manufacturing, mainly with wood processing, pottery, iron, and textiles. Bennington was around in 1749, named after the colonial governor Benning Wentworth, named in his honor, and it's actually the oldest town chartered in the state. And it's outside what is now New Hampshire, though Brattleboro technically was settled early. But Bennington was most well known for the Battle of Bennington during the Revolutionary War, though it took place actually 12 miles west. But still, it was among the closest things to the American Revolution, and this was one of the turning points of the American Revolution, along with Saratoga, here in Bennington. Pretty cool stuff. And Bennington Battle Monument is actually around 306 feet high. Yeah, it's good to see God Nickel. Yeah, we'll talk about Tennessee next Wednesday when we get to Tennessee, the state. But it's going to be going down from for the Tennessee stream. It's going to go from Knoxville, from Gatlinburg to Memphis. It'll be a bit of a longer one, but we'll get through all the major places like Knoxville, Nashville, Jackson, and Memphis. Sadly, won't go through Chattanooga, but try to get the big cities included, which is Nashville, Memphis, and all those. Those I felt are probably more important for what we're doing here. I do think the Mill's the best. I don't know. I think the eastern one is definitely the most scenic. In Tennessee, I've been through 2 of the 3 sections. But east is definitely the most scenic with the Smoky Mountains, obviously. With the Great Smoky Mountains, that's always scenic. Middle Tennessee definitely has Nashville, Tennessee. Definitely has the city of Nashville. The middle one definitely has Chattanooga, Nashville, and then Memphis. The west has Memphis. Definitely some cool stuff about Tennessee. Tennessee's also been the state I visited the most outside of Florida. Outside of the main 2 states of Florida, Tennessee and Florida are like the 2 most visited states I've been to. All in the east, Elvis in the west, middle is the best. The middle has basically got every other country artist. So this is Bennington. Here's the little town of Bennington. One of the monuments. I think the monument's in the sim. Let's see if the monument's. I think that's the monument here. We're gonna fly over to check out the battle monument. That looks like that might be model in the sim. We're gonna fly to the monument. Yeah, I do like flying the Savage Cub. It is definitely really enjoyable. It's a great little bush plane. So I think that's going to be the plan for the 50 streams and stuff. And then when we get back after a couple 10 days, the next 2 of those streams will be Ohio and Louisiana. So for Ohio, it would be Cincinnati to Cleveland. It would be very similar to the baseball route I did. Cincinnati to Cleveland. We'll go through and mention the major cities in the states. Like Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, Canton, Akron, and Cleveland. And then Louisiana is going to go down from Shreveport to New Orleans. In all those areas. And then after that will be Indiana, Mississippi, my home state. The Hoosier state. Hoosier daddy. You're the only 10 I see. Hey, good to see you. Good to see you, reciprocal. Good to see ya. First time chat, I hope you're doing well. So this is the Bennington Battle Monument. We check it out here. We're in beautiful Vermont today. Very underrated state. I know a lot of people don't think so, but I think Vermont's very underrated. Not a lot of people, though. It's the second least populous state. Only Wyoming has more people. Only Wyoming has less. And mind you, Wyoming is a much larger state than Vermont. It's a far. Here's the monument here in Bennington. This commemorates the Battle of Bennington for the American Revolutionary War. Heard of it? There it is. There's the Bennington National Monument. Pretty cool. It's actually the tallest man-made structure in the state. And you know why Vermont doesn't need tall buildings, right? It's because one lives there. No, seriously. Burlington is the largest city in it, and in fact, there are entire cities with more populations than the state of Vermont. I know that's not bullcrap. It's actually pretty. It's actually pretty. Yes, but that's right. When we get to Wyoming, I'll talk about that. But yes, Wyoming is indeed the first state to give women the right of vote. But yeah, Wyoming's a really cool state. A lot of history. Really cool things about Wyoming too. But that's not until the later half of this series. Trust me, we still got a long way to go. We're only just 14. 50 states. But Wyoming definitely has many firsts too. That's why it's called, and that's why no wonder Wyoming's called the Equality State. It's in the nickname. It's so I got the notes. So we're going to talk about the geography of Vermont as we head to Rutland. Here it is. So it's actually the 45th largest state. It's actually among the smallest states in the Union, of course. It's the only state that does not have any buildings taller than 124 feet. That's right. None of the buildings are taller than 124 feet. To put this perspective, there are some of these buildings don't even get above the tree line in Vermont. In fact, this country in terms of area is larger than El Salvador, but smaller than Haiti. And it's the only landlocked state in New England. Yes, even New Hampshire has a bit of a coastline, not Vermont. Of course, the most prominent geographic feature of the state is the Green Mountains that run the north-south through much of the state. The southwest portion you have the Taconic Mountains, and the northwest is the fertile Champlain Valley near Lake Champlain. And that lake is the sixth largest body of fresh water in the United States. It separates Vermont from New York in the northwest. Of course, some of the peaks here, of course, are pretty cool as well. However, flooding is an issue here in the States, mainly with the Great Flood of 1927 that caused a lot of damage to the state. So, the largest city in Vermont is Burlington with 44,000 people. Yes, if I were told you Burlington would be the largest city with 44,000, you guys wouldn't believe me, but it's true. There's entire states, there's entire cities that have more people than Vermont. In fact, some states, bigger states, smaller cities have more than Burlington. Pretty small. Its climate here in Vermont is around, the mean temperature is around 43 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a humid continental climate with muddy springs in general, an early mild summer, hot August, colorful autumns, and cold winters, especially those at higher elevations. In the northeast section is the averages around 10 degrees colder than the southern areas. and average snowfall averages between 60 to 100 inches, depending on elevation and year. In fact, it's the 7th coldest in the country. Yeah, this area can get really, really cold during the winter time. So yeah, and finally for the flora and fauna, um, of course, it contains 41 species of reptiles and amphibians, 89 species of fish, 103 species of marine birds, 58 species of mammals, and more than 15,000 insect species, as well as 2,000 higher plant species. There is one venomous snake that lives here, and it's the timber rattlesnake. They're the rattlesnake species that lives here. Of course, while I did suffer from human development in the States, mainly with wild turkeys, though they were reintroduced back in 1969, and they have grown to 45,000 of them. There's also other animals affected, like the American woodcock, brown thrasher, willow flycatcher, and the Baltimore oriole. As well. In terms of flora, it's home to a lot of temperate broadleaf and mixed forest biomes. Much of it is covered with the Green Mountains by conifers and northern hardwoods of the New England Acadian forest. Invasive wasp suckle has been a threat to the state's forest, and as a result, many of them have subject to artificial barriers to prevent them from flooding this area. Of course, the sugar maple industry has been pretty much affected by acid rain, hair thrips, Asian longhorn beetles. So, definitely something to keep in mind. Oh, really? You stepped on one of those? Ugh. Yeah, you want to get rid of those beetles. Those Asian long-hair beetles? Yeah, you want to get rid of those. They are very bad endangered invasive species. Because they can destroy a lot of urban trees and stuff. Because they often eat a lot of ashes. Eat a lot of ashes and stuff, and that's not good for baseball bats. No, a temple rattlesnake. Oh. Oh yeah, yeah. Be careful of those rattlesnakes. They're quite venomous. Yeah, this area is gorgeous here. Look at the mountain valley. This feels like something out in the western, like Colorado and something. Only it's in the east half. Now, of course, my waypoint is going to take us to Hildy. Now, a bit of an interesting story about this home, Hildy Lincoln family home. This was actually the former summer home of Robert Todd Lincoln and his wife Mary Harlan Lincoln. And basically Robert Todd Lincoln was the eldest of the 4 sons of President Abraham Lincoln and his wife Mary Todd, and the only one to actually survive into adulthood. So he visited this Manchester Center in Vermont at age 20, when he and his brother stayed at the Equinox House to escape DC, and it remained occupied by the descendants of the Lincoln family until 1975. And eventually was preserved by the nonprofit organization's Friend of Hildy. Preserved it. And a lot of this area is, it's around a 412-acre estate. Really cool stuff, and it features many facts of the Lincoln family. So if you want to learn more about Abraham Lincoln's family and want to know whatever happened with them, Hilding is in talks about. And you can have, there's like a whole overview of the estate, the home. There's a farm, even trails. It's a very important natural landmark here in the state. It's definitely one of the state's more interesting tourist attractions in the state. But I thought that would be a pretty fun thing to cover a little bit of is Lincoln Home. I thought that would be a nice little landmark. You guys can learn some information about it. And basically a bit about Robert Todd Lincoln, a bit of interesting about him was after his collegehood, he served during the Civil War as a staff of Ulysses S. Grant. And he married Mary Harlan Lincoln, who had 3 children together. And after the war, he became general counsel of the Pullman Company. After George Pullman died, he became one of the leaders for railroad cars during the 1910s. He served there as chairman until 1924. So he became pretty well known for his business and stuff, mainly with Pullman Palace Car Company. And all that. Oh yeah, here's the funny thing about Robert Lincoln too. A lot of people don't know about this. He was actually present in a couple of assassination attempts with presidential assassins. Under 3 of them. And down below us is the Hildene. This is the Lincoln family home down below us. This is the Lincoln family home down below. He was actually, his presence was around 3 different presidential assassinations. He wasn't present during the 4th year, but he was at the White House nearby and he had to be with his parents. He was an eyewitness when Charles J. Guiteau shot President James Garfield in 1881, as Lincoln was serving as Garfield's Secretary of War. And he was actually at the Pan American Exposition where William McKinley was shot and was assassinated in 1901. Been through 3 of these coincidences. Yes. How about coincidences? I kid you. Yeah, pretty interesting guy to learn. Yeah, exactly. Historically, they've been very independent. Historically, yeah, they've been very independent of each other, especially Vermont, who actually declared independence from the United States, from all that. They've always had independence, even here. They've always been more independent compared to the rest of the Union politically. But they've been historically quite progressive. I don't think it's a bad rap at all. In fact, there are some benefits of that more progressive changes as well. But mainly it's the fact that Vermont has pretty high GDP per capita. So, of course, you all know these mountain range here is the Green Mountains, what gives Vermont its name, the nickname. The tallest peak here in the Green Mountains is 4,395 feet at Mount Mansfield. We will be flying over during our way over to we'll fly over there on our way to Burlington. We'll be making our way to Mount Mansfield, but there's a lot of other peaks around 4,000 feet. Hillington Peak, Hamel's Hump, Mount Ellen, and Mount Abraham are over 4,000 feet tall. The other ones are like Pico Peak at 3,900, Stratton Mountain at 3,940 feet, Jade Peak at 3,800. But fun fact, it actually receives the most snowfall on average in the eastern half of the country. Red Love Mountain at 3835, and finally at number 10, Mount Wilson. And these areas are popular for a lot of tourism for skiing. This makes Vermont pretty popular as a skiing area in the northeast. In fact, Vermont itself was actually named after these mountains too. The state itself actually comes from the French term Mont Vert, or Vermont, literally translate to green mountains. So yes, Vermont literally gets its name from these mountains. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff, guys. Exactly. It's not as simple as you think. Every state's politics and stuff. I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, everything develops differently with each U.S. state. So, um, beautiful stuff. So yeah, Green Mountains. Yeah, that's crazy. Look. What a cool site. Of course, we have a Discord here. If you guys are interested in Tennessee's and the Clowns, pretty fun. You're not wrong. Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember the clown show. Yeah, that was early. That was early in 2024. It was a total clown show. And yeah, that's why things get the way they are. Well, I do have my Discord if you guys want to join on in. Also, yeah, I forgot on Wednesday night. Um, oh yeah, I forgot as well. I had to deal with a spammer on Wednesday night. Apparently, someone's account was hacked, so they were spamming my Discord. So I had to do some mod work. Yippee, mod work. Yeah, it's taken care of. The mess has been taken care of. I do like the Savage Cub for this kind of bush. Oh, crazy. This is crazy. I know this is the eastern half, but yeah, the Green Mountains are also part of the Appalachians mountain chain. And of course, there's even a national forest here. All this is part of the Green Mountain National Forest, which supports a lot of wildlife. It was established in 1932 due to uncontrolled logging, fire, and flooding. And it's actually one of the two national forest areas in New England. The other one being the one we visit in New Hampshire, the White Mountain National Forest. It contains around 399,000 acres of federal land. There's quite a few recreation areas too, but mainly it's all wilderness to protect species like the beaver, moose, coyote, black bear, white-tailed deer, and ruffed grouse. Oh yeah, and there's also here's the Vermont tourism website to check out what's there in Vermont. Still use it 19 years later. Crazy. So later today in our fights and community, later today, Murph will be back on later today. He'll be doing his. He'll be in Germany in the BN2 Islander. BNT Islander. He'll be doing some flying in Germany for a with the community member. Go from Bonn to Mendig, then Mannheim, and Bremgarten be where this flight plan is going to terminate. Also on Saturday, Allison's going to be back. She'll be doing another one of her historical recreation. Flying from Cyprus to Amman, Jordan, which will take about a 4-hour, 30-minute flight. What a view! What a fantastic, gorgeous. What a gorgeous view. Couldn't ask for anything better. Also, currently right now, I'm still working on the All Country series. I've been working on the All Country series. I've been working on that. Currently on Algeria, I'll get that probably worked on as well, and I'll work on the notes. That way, I get as much of these notes done, so I don't have to worry about doing them later on. And that way, I can focus less on making notes and more time trying to perfect being with you guys. So we're going to be in Rutland very soon. We're just about to land in Rutland. This city is the only city in the county. Population of the population is 15,000 people. It's actually the third largest city in the state after Burlington and South Burlington, which is part of the Burlington metro area. And surrounded by Rutland Town, which is literally a separate municipality. The downtown areas were located as a historic district of the National Historic Register of Places. And the town was chartered in 1761 and settled in 1770 as one of the capitals for the Republic of Vermont. In the early 19th century, marble deposits were found in the area, and it became a marble quarries as well. It became one of the world's leading marble producers. We're actually here in Rutland. It helped grow Rutland into becoming a major city today. Though with the closing of the marble quarries, there's a lot of jobs that lost in this area, but this area is historically very important in Vermont's history. Nowadays, it's more medical centers, engine companies here, Green Mountain Power, and more are the main people that operate here. It contains some historic buildings, mainly the Rutland Free Library, Paramount Theater, and Merchants Row, dating back to the 19th places. It was also featured in pop culture for the True TV reality feeders features the Rutland City Police Department, as well as featured for many feature films and cable TV movies by film studio Edgewood Studios and David Glencola. So pretty cool stuff on Little Rutland. And the airport we'll cover here is Rutland Southland Vermont Airport. Serves here around Rutland. It has 3 domestic flights daily with Cape Air with the Technim P2012 aircraft to Boston. The typical flight time of 40 minutes. It is the closest commercial airport to mountain resorts such as Killington, Pico, Okemo, Stratton, Magic Mountain, and Mount Snow. So for a lot of ski resorts, this is the closest airport to a lot of these destinations. A lot of these ski here in Vermont. Guys, we're about to make our first land of the day here very shortly. We're in the right direction. He has no autopilot. The nice thing about the Savage Cub is you don't need much of a runway at all to land and take off. But I am very much looking forward to do the National Park series. So I don't have to, so that way we can do some landing in the scenery in the bush and just check out these places the way they deserve. beautiful state. And of course, Sunday will be in the Bluegrass State on Sunday. We'll be touring Kentucky. I call it my second home state because technically I live about 30 minutes from Kentucky, so and I've been in the Bluegrass State all throughout my life, so technically my second. Technically, I live closer to Louisville than I do with Indianapolis. And I got plenty of information to talk about the Bluegrass State coming from someone who's lived in that state for a long time. There's plenty to do here in the state in the tourism website. Plenty of activities. A lot of it is outdoor recreation, which makes sense. Considering Vermont is very forested, this is a great outdoor state. We're doing pretty good, guys. We're about 94 nautical miles out from our final stop here in Burlington. What a stop right here. We'll stop right here for a bit. Here in beautiful Vermont. This area definitely has some amazing scenery. Especially during the fall season is where this area really shines. Fall colors and all that. Marvelous. let's go ahead and prepare for the next leg of the trip. Go ahead and get ready for our next leg over to beautiful Rutland. Fly over here and we'll make our way to Montpelier, state capital of Vermont. Nice thing about this is you don't need much room. You don't even need the flaps with this thing. Here, that's the nice thing about the Cubs is they don't need much room. So that's why if I want to fly my own real life plane, I know the Cessna 172 would still be cheaper, but if I would prefer fun, I'd rather give me one of the Cubs. So I have that guarantee I can take off from it. Rutland's going to be coming up. Once we get to Rutland, we'll turn right and we'll head our way over to Montpelier for our next stop. So we'll talk about some more Vermont stuff here at the state. Beautiful mountain. Please see it. Here's Rutland. Here's the Vermont State Fairgrounds, by the way. This is the fairgrounds for the state fair. And turn right. So let's talk about Vermont's economy for a bit. So yeah, Vermont is the least economically producing state. GDP is the smallest of all U.S. states with $40.6 billion in 2022. However, its GDP per capita is $63,000, which makes it 21st among states. So it's above average in GDP per capita, but its gross regional domestic product is the least of all U.S. states. Much of the GDP comes from components, mainly government is number one, followed by real estate, rental, leasing, 11%, durable goods manufacturing at 9.6% of its GDP, retail 8.4%, finance 5.9%, construction 5.5%, and many others down below. But the main part of it is industry, though, is agriculture, and it is historically been more important. It only accounts for less than 1% of its GDP and less than 1% of its working population work agriculture. But the big part of that agricultural income is dairy farming, especially during the 20th century. However, originally, condos and houses which were built on inexpensive lands. However, Vermont's government followed a series of controlling developments to prevent the dairy industry from declining, which was ineffective. However, historically, Vermont was a pretty important dairy farming state, mainly with organic farming. But despite that, though, dairy barns still remain a characteristic of Vermont, mainly mainly preserving a lot of historical legacy. Mainly one of those is the Vermont barn census, to keep those dairy farms still running. But of course, historically, the biggest part of its economy, however, is forestry. That's always been a staple, as it contributes about not 1% of the gross state output and 9% of all manufacturing in the state. Mainly a lot of them in Windham County. However, they're mostly keep forest management very important. Mainly with a lot of woods export to Canada. And then finally, of course, more than half of all U.S. production of maple syrup occurs here in the state of Vermont. It was the leading producer of maple syrup in the country. Very important stuff, and also apples are another part of its economy, mainly producing a lot of McIntosh apples. So, pretty interesting stuff going on with its agriculture. And of course, it's also a big recreational state, mainly for outdoors, as it's especially with summer camps like Camp Abenaki, Camp Billings, Camp Dudley. All these camps are very popular for tourism. In 2005, more than 13 million people made a trip here to Vermont, which is about $1 billion. In addition to this, it's also a popular hunting area for black bear, wild turkey, deer, and moose. And of course, skiing is a huge part of the Vermont economy is its resorts. Some of the largest ski areas in New England are in the states. Burke Mountain, Fulton Valley, Conger's Notch, Stowe Mountain, Sugarbush, Jeep Peak, and more. Lots of these areas. And then during the summertime, many summer visitors visit Stowe, Manchester, and Mount Snow. However, global warming is going to shorten the length of the ski season, which would not be good at all. Of course, finally, the last major part, and this is more historically important, was quarrying, mainly granite. And it's mainly concentrated in the towns of Barr and Rutland, or traditional centers of marble granite quarrying in the United States, or here in Vermont. For many years, Vermont was also the headquarters of the smallest union in the country, the Journeyman Stonecutters Association of North America, which around 500 members. The first marble quarry in the country was on Mount Aeolus, and attracted many stonecutters in the late 19th century from Italy, Scotland, and Ireland. It is also Barr is the location of the Rocket Ages Quarry, the largest dimension stone quarry in the country. Granite, and it's the largest producer of slate. So stonework is very historically and still is important to Vermont's economy. Not so much nowadays, but still important for historical reasons in the state. So historically been very, very yeah, absolutely gorgeous scenery. What do you guys think of the scenery out here in Vermont? I know it's a lot of snow, but it's absolutely gorgeous here in Vermont. Mm, this leg is going to take us about 40 nautical more miles on this part of the leg. We'll be flying over more of it. Well, we might be able to see the White Mountains in the distance. If you look all the way over to here to our right, I think we might be able to see some of the White Mountains here in Vermont and New Hampshire. The White Mountains in New Hampshire can be seen in this. And of course, we visited Mount Washington. some of the worst weather in the United States is up there. I showed you guys a video of it a while back, but yeah, the winds in Mount Washington were absolutely insane. Some of the worst winds outside of a hurricane. It's pretty interesting. Here's the rest of the route if you guys want to check out the route. I know I posted it in the stream tile, but in case if you didn't know, here's our route. The next leg, thankfully, would be significantly shorter. The last leg would be get through to Mount Mansfield. So another thing to talk about here in Vermont, of course, is transportation. Again, Vermont being one of the smallest states in the country, is a lot of transportation. The main organization responsible for transportation infrastructure is the Vermont Agency of Transportation. Most people travel through Vermont in car, with around 93% of all people in Vermont owning a car in 2021. There are 4 car ferry routes that go across Lake Champlain, because obviously it's important. And passenger rail is provided by the Amtrak's Daily Vermonter and Ethan Allen Express trains that go through a lot of Vermont. There's also intercity bus operators operating throughout the cities. The primary airport is Patrick Lee, Burlington. We will be visiting on our final stop. But yes, so basically, nearly 1 in every person has a car. It actually is the third smallest safest. They're the third safest state for highway fatalities. Again, not many people. However, a big major traffic threat for a lot of cars driving in Vermont is moose, particularly in the northern half. So several deaths a year are caused by people running into mooses. Trust me, you don't want to run into a moose. Moose are big, they're heavy and large. Think about a deer and multiply by like 5 or 10. And Vermont has around 2,840 highways, the third smallest of all 50 states. There's also really unique factor is that Vermont outlawed billboards for advertisement on roads, making it only one of 4 states to do, along with Hawaii, Maine, and Alaska. So, there's also ferries across Lake Champlain, from Charlotte to Essex, and Grand Island to Plattsburgh. Then you have a couple of rails that go through a lot of this area. And finally, for aviation, Patrick Leahy is the largest airport in the state with flights to Atlanta, Charlotte, Denver, Detroit, Dulles, and Philadelphia. Airlines that serve like American, Delta, Breeze, Sun Country, and all that. And also Rutland's the other commercial airport here. As you can tell, like I said, Vermont does have a lot in transportation in the state. with not a lot of people. Not super busy. Yeah, look at the scenery. It's fantastic. I know Okandu was there I think a few days ago. So I hope you guys are enjoying the stream. And if you are want to support the channels, hey Red Baron Fly, good to see you. Yeah, it is the One Savage Cub today, Red Baron. I picked this scheme because it is red, white, and blue, which is United States colors. I know there's two different blues, but technically this is close enough. But it is United States. We're in beautiful Vermont today. Red Baron, Green Mountains, the Green Mountain State, as it's called. So yeah, I do like the Savage Cup. The Sun Savage, really great. I've always enjoyed it. Very fun playing. Here it is, guys. We're going to be heading to Mount Pellier very soon. About one last stop left to go. Yeah, this has been pretty good. I know I've also been doing a lot of other stuff here as well. I've been mainly trying to keep track of some other stuff. I know Louisville basketball is going to be playing today. I wonder if Louisville basketball playing tonight. They are playing tomorrow at Forest State. This should be another win for the 25th ranked Cardinals. Hopefully they can be able to win. I mean, Louisville's won 4 straight. Forest State's decent, but I don't think they're going to beat the Cardinals. I mean, what a year for Pat Kelsey. He's put Louisville back on the map. I think the rest of the games are very winnable. So imagine ending the season, ending the regular season. 1, 2, 3. 25-6 at the end of the regular season. Pretty insane from an 8-win season last year. And last year, Louisville won only 8 games last year. That's a massive 17-win improvement. Couldn't ask for a better first season for Kelsey. I know the ACC is weak this year, but still winning 25, potentially winning 25 games. Still very impressive. At the TFC Stadium, no, not the TFC Stadium, but um, for Louisville basketball. But yeah, still the conference schedule would be a big win for the basketball program. KFC, yeah, the KFC Yum Center. Yep, it's at the KFC. Oh yes, oh yeah, I know your joke. Yeah, because KFC Yum Brands is moving to Texas. Yes, it's moving to Texas. KFC's moving its corporate stuff from Louisville to Texas. Uh, I think it's because Texas is a much more busy, um, um, maybe it's a more business friendly state, which is why they moved to Texas. More business friendly. Yes, Texas Roadhouse in Louisville, KFC in Texas. I guess swapping out the two. Pretty interesting states. Pretty interesting thing going on for sure. So we're going to talk about a bit about Montpelier, which is the state capital of Vermont, and it's the least populous state capital, which, no joke, is 8,074 people. Though in the daytime, it goes up to 21,000. Yes, it's the smallest state capital. There are literally towns in our states with larger populations than the state capital of Vermont. That is not a joke. It's named after Montpelier, a city in South France. And oh no. Is there another fuel tank I gotta put for this? Oh dear. I'm out of power. Where do I change the fuel tank on that? Yeah, I ran out of fuel. Like, I was wondering where to change the fuel tank. But Montpelier is founded in 1781 as a town chart from providers from Massachusetts, Western Vermont. It became the state capital in 1805. It's the north central area of the state, flowed by the Winooski River, and it was actually built several times with floods during 3 times, especially the one in 1927 and most recently 2023. And the government plays a big role in the city's economy. And a lot of people entered the city from Amtrak Montpelier Station. There's also the local airport, Edward A. Knapp Airport. The closest commercial service is Patrick Lee Burlington Airport. One of the most unique things about Montpelier is it's home to the Vermont State House. They got its own history museum, state museum, concerts, and more. Oh yeah, and funnily enough, a lot of the businesses in this area are locally owned. In fact, it's the only state capital where it doesn't have at least once that neither has one Starbucks location nor a McDonald's store. But yeah, you can't find McDonald's or a Starbucks here. They're all locally owned businesses here in Vermont. So, Oh, you don't. Oh, it is bugged. I didn't know about that. Thank you for that. Yeah, it definitely is. It's definitely very good. Oh yeah, the Cessna 185. Oh, cool. Thank you. The marketplace isn't open yet. Oh yeah, I probably need to fly it. I don't know. It's not if you're. Oh, okay. So if you're in the beta, it's in your library. Okay. But I'm not running the beta, so I'm probably gonna wait to after beta, and then it will be in the library. But yeah, I may check it out though when it comes. Red Baron. I'll definitely check out that 185 for sure. But yeah, the old Skywagon. Yeah, I think I believe it was a pretty popular little bush plane. Popular. No, it's not actually that old. The 185 actually only produced started back in 19. It actually flew in 1961 is its production. It went from production from 1961 to 1985. So it is pretty old, about 60 years old. If you fly the original models, and there's a lot of variants over it, including the A185F with camber lift wing. I think our runway for 35 is down. Very low most time with supersonic props. But if you look at the price next to the 179 day, gotcha. Well, look at that. Oh yeah, $200,000 for a 1981, a newer model with floats. That's not too bad for a plane like this. The 185. That's not bad at all. Yeah, it's a 180 with a strengthened fuselage and the increased horsepower. That makes it definitely a better bush plane. Exactly. Yeah, I'm very excited though when I do get my hands on it. Just I don't run the beta because I don't want to take a risk of things screwing up. Yeah, sometimes if you know about betas, they can be a little unstable sometimes. So that's why I don't run it. Here it is, guys. Now the airport here in Montpelier, by the way, the Edward F. Knapp State, was opened in 1929. It was the main GA airport for a lot of this area around here, around Montpelier. It was mainly operated with a lot of smaller carriers. It used to have airline services, though it went out of business in 1989, and most of the commercial centers that operate here mainly go to Burlington, not Montpelier. We're going to stop here for just a bit. And we're officially we're officially just outside the capital. We'll rest here for a bit. And if anyone wants to join on in. Ronnie, that's around 300K, that's red and black. But I'll never be able to buy them. Yeah, I guess you'd be better off getting a 170. And the 185s are definitely pretty cool. Yeah, you can get one for the 170 be really cheap. There's some really cheap ones. Right. Some of these are like for 75,000. Or there's one lower for 1953 model for $59,000. Cheap. That's about like a modern car price. Of course, obviously maintenance, but that's not bad. Oh yeah, definitely would be cool to do. Some of the older ones. Yeah, I would like to have one of those too. Definitely pretty. So we got one last light left to go, guys. You get a discount on maintenance. Yeah, maintenance is always the biggest thing. Is maintenance. Always maintenance, especially with these older planes. We're gonna go ahead and get back for our final leg of the trip. Go ahead and say hello to Montpelier. Here's guys, we'll be flying over the state capital very shortly. To our right is Bar, which is one of the largest granite, the center of Vermont's granite industry. One of the big names, things that helped grow Vermont into where it is today. Now we'll be heading to Montpelier. So once we get to Montpelier, we're going to go cover the rest of the Vermont notes briefly. As we head to the historic ski community and summer resort of Stowe. Before we cover that. A beautiful state though. Vermont, really pretty. It is extremely pretty. So unfortunately, like I said, it gets overlooked compared to a lot of other states in the East. Like again, it's not Massachusetts. I mean, look at the scenery, the fall colors. I'll tell you, it's not pretty. I don't know what it is. Montpelier. We're going to fly around the state capital, the state house. Hangar fees are a big thing out there, though. Yeah, Bowman is not cheap. And Clark, and similarly, Clark's not much better. And yeah, Clark's my home airport, so I would probably know it's not cheap. State House of Vermont is right over to our left. And it is, thankfully, it is a POI landmark, thankfully. The Vermont State House. Right over here is the Vermont State House, so here's Vermont State House. And as you can see, the snow covered on top of the State House. By the way, it is a very small town. In fact, I could list a whole bunch of towns that are probably bigger than Vermont State Capital. Like for example, cities like Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg are bigger than that. Gatlinburg's bigger than Montpelier. There's a lot of towns. I mean, Clarksville's bigger than this. Clarksville, New Albany, you're probably all bigger than the state capital. Not a very big city. It's a pretty area though, and a lot of Vermont's really pretty. Blast our way over the stuff. So let's go ahead and yeah, Clarksville is bigger. So about Vermont, for its culture, Vermont is definitely known for its local culture with festivals, including the Maple Festival, Festival of the Green, the Vermont Dairy Festival in Inselberg Falls, Apple Festival held each Columbus Day weekend, the Marlboro Music Festival, the Guilford County Fair, and the Vermont Brewers Festival, all major festivals in the state. Since 1973, the Sage City Symphony, performed by composer Louise Calborough, has performed in the Bennington area, as well as Vermont-based composers, including Gwyneth Walker, forming the Vermont Composers Forum, which is for composing. Burlington, Vermont hosts the Vermont International Film Festival, which presents independent films. There's an annual Shakespeare Festival here in Brattleboro. And of course, there's also the Vermontosaurus in Thetford, which is a very famous rock art. However, for most Vermonters, and a certain, for those who don't know, Vermont's home to a very well-known rock band, Phish. Someone that Planet Neutral might know very, very well, and that's definitely something that a certain Southern Indiana streamer that I know very well is a big fan of them. And they play much of their earlier years in the state. There's also the House of LeMay Theater Show, and more. Of course, for sports in the state, winter sports are very popular, and Vermont's home to some of the strongest winter sports in New England, mainly with Burke Mountain, Jay Peak Resorts, Killington, Stone Mountain Resorts, and Smuggler's Notch Resorts. And Vermont's home to several snowboarders, including Kevin Pierce, Ross Powers, Hannah Tater, and Kelly Clark. Some of these include gold medalists, too. Or gold medalist snowboarding. The large professional franchise is actually the Vermont Lake Monsters of the Collegiate Baseball League in Burlington. Of course, the other big thing for sports outside of winter sports stuff is collegiate. They mainly support the University of Vermont Catamounts. They mainly play a lot of basketballs. College basketball is a big deal, as well as college hockey. There's also a few motorsport venues here in the state, mainly Bar Vermont's Thunder Road International Speed Bowl. And there's also Delbo Speedway. And some truck drivers have even competed in Vermont circuits like Tony Stewart, Clint Bower, Kyle Busch, Ken Schrader, Christopher Bell. But outside of that, though, there isn't too much for sports. Again, Vermont is a very small state. Sports aren't a big deal. So here are some state facts about the Green Mountain states that need to be covered for you guys. You wouldn't believe this, but Vermont didn't have a Walmart until 1996. It was once the only state to not have a Walmart. Of course, Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream, one of the most famous businesses in the state, was actually, fun fact about them is a lot of the waste from their ice cream is given to local Vermont farmers who use it to feed their hogs. They like all the flavors except for mint Oreo. They hate mint Oreo for some reason. Probably pigs don't like mint. Vermont, however, does not sell alcohol to out-of-state licenses. You must have a liquor ID in order to purchase alcohol in liquor stores and more. But it can affect those traveling to the state. In terms of ratio to cows to people, Vermont has the greatest number of dairy cows in the country. Of course, Rudyard Kipling, who was living in Vermont in the 1890s, invented the game snow golf, which is basically golfing in snow. And finally, the official state songs, there's two of them. Hail Vermont and These Green Mountains are the two official state songs of Vermont. And finally, for the last piece of thing about Vermont, is there are some very famous people from Vermont. There are some very, very famous people. Sherman Adams, a governor from East Dover, Vermont. In fact, Vermont's home to 2 U.S. presidents, believe it or not. Yes, 2 U.S. presidents came from Vermont. Chester Alan Arthur from Fairfield, and most recently, Calvin Coolidge from Plymouth, Vermont. You also have the famous John Deere inventor from Rutland, who made a lot of the John Deere tractors. Probably know the name quite well if you're into agriculture. Admiral George Dewey from Montpelier. James Fisk, financial speculator from Bennington. But one of the most interesting people you would ever expect is Brigham Young. If you guys aren't aware about his name, you better know him for being one of the leaders of the Mormons. He's from Winningham. You also have John Dewey, educator from Burlington. Thomas Davenport from Williamstown. Vermont's also home to Carlton Fisk, Hall of Fame catcher Carlton Fisk. But yeah, a lot of famous people. Also, other people include Bernie Sanders, of course, the longest-serving independent in U.S. congressional history. Rudyard Kipling lived in Vermont. He settled down here for a bit. Justin Morrill, senator and author of the Morrill Land Grant, and more. But yes, a lot of famous people actually live here in the state. Despite it being a very small state, yes, Vermont's home to some very famous people. Let's not forget that. Of course, our next destination is we're going to come up here shortly, and that is Stowe, Vermont. This town here in Vermont is very well known for being Stowe Mountain Resort. It's the capital of VT. It's home, which is a ski facility on the terrain of Mount Mansfield, the highest peak in Vermont. Stowe was chartered in 1763 by Benning Whitworth. And Stowe really grew originally early on by farming timber. Like sheep farming made a popular thing in the hills. However, what really changed this area, it was actually grown into a summer resort by the mid-19th century thanks to its mountain scenery. It became very popular with a lot of ski jumping, skating, and other winter activities. And it still remains popular even to this day. And there's a Vermont ski museum here too. But the mountain resort is very famous here. Definitely one of the most well-known here in the United States. So, here it is, guys. we'll head to Mount Mansfield, the tallest point in the state. How cool is that, guys? And once we get there, we'll head to Burlington, largest city in the state. Yeah, pretty eerie here. I like Vermont. Question though, is it more stunning than New Hampshire though? That's a good question because both are extremely stunning areas in their own right. Here it is, Mount Mansfield. This is the tallest point of the state, and Mount Mansfield is one of the 3 spots where alpine tundra can survive from ice ages. And mainly this area's got a lot of hiking trails, but it's also popular tourist activities to drive the 4.1-mile toll road and hike all the way to the highest point. Its native name is its Abenaki name is Mos Devi Wajak, which translates to Moosehead Mountain. That's the main indigenous name for this. Get some crazy good views from. Here's the mountain resort here at Stowe. Very popular area, and here's Mount Mansfield. Once we get through here, we'll talk about Burlington. There's the toll road that connects all the way up here. That is the Mountain Road. That's the main road that goes up. That's the toll road, and it goes all the way to the top. Here it is, guys. The tallest peak in Vermont. Crazy good views. The nice thing about the Super Cub is here, guys. Top of Mount Mansfield. That for look at that for a view. The tallest point in. What a view. That is a crazy view. So now we're going to head to the state capital of the largest city in Vermont. Burlington will be our final stop. Burlington is the most populous city in Vermont. Its population, though, is 44,000 people. Its metro area is around 225,000 people, which would make it only the 208th largest metro area. Yes, it's the least populous city in the 50 states to be the most populous city. Pretty crazy. Think about this. For this perspective, Burlington's largest population is actually smaller than not only all 50 U.S. states, it's even smaller than some of the non-U.S. territories. In fact, it's smaller than Guam's largest city of Dido by only a couple hundred, by 400 people. It's smaller than Saipan in Northern Marianas. That's not territory. In fact, speaking about population of Vermont, Vermont's population is only at 640,000 people. San Juan, Puerto Rico's population, mind you, the largest city population. Puerto Rico's population is about 5 times larger in an area larger than that, 5 times more people. That's insane to think about. Now, the next smallest after Vermont, the 50 states, is West Virginia at Charleston. But even that's still 2,000 more people. In addition to this, Burlington is most well known for being a regional college town. It's home to the University of Vermont and Champlain College. It's its main home. And Burlington is also the first U.S. city to run entirely on renewable energy. And it's mainly known for its art and culture, mainly with dragon boat races that have been held here for charity in Lake Champlain. It also has the first night community events on New Year's Eve, mainly about arts. And of course, the most famous musical act from Burlington is Fish. Is really cool, which is really interesting as well. Burlington's its main economic thing has been University of Vermont, and it's been the most. Also, Ben and Jerry's was found here too. And finally, its main airport is, and by far the busiest airport in the state is Burlington International. And it was 100 times the traffic of the second busiest airport in Rutland. The only airport in the state to serve commercial service. And believe it or not, a lot of people actually come here for passengers. Don't even come from Vermont. They come from Quebec, funnily enough. And if I had to be honest, I think the reason is because Montreal's airports come quite busy. Plus, Montreal doesn't serve a lot of U.S. destinations. Currently flies to destinations such as Philadelphia, Charlotte, Dallas, Washington, Charleston, Orlando, Tampa, Raleigh, Chicago, Newark, Denver. Our main destinations that fly out of Burlington. That covers the last of the slides for Vermont. I'm going to go ahead and descend. Into Burlington. There is, of course, the big lake here, Lake Champlain. Now, we visited here before, the lake before, when we went to Plattsburgh during one of our streams in the Adrian Dax in MSFS 2020. It's our first time visiting here in 2024. We'll fly over Burlington briefly, and then we'll make our way to the airport. I think this was a really good stream. I really enjoyed today. This has been a great flight today. Got to learn a little about Vermont. There's Burlington. Here we go, guys. Mm. Here is Burlington. Made it to Burlington, you guys. Doesn't have photogrammetry though, but to be fair, this is the smallest major city in the country. This is still beautiful with the lake and all that. What a great view of Lake Champlain. And of course, you guys all know what's that in the distance. That is the Adirondacks in the distance. If you ever get a chance to fly over this part of New York, I really recommend it. It is amazing here. Do some GA ops. Yep, we're about to make it to Burlington, Vermont. So that's it, everyone. That takes care of today's notes, and we're going to go ahead and find our land spot. And we'll wrap up the stream, guys. This has been a great journey today. So we're going to go ahead and make our way here. A beautiful scenery here in And guys, that is it, everyone. We wrap up today's trip here in the Green Mountain State, Vermont. Guys, thank you all so much for coming here today. This has been a great stream, and I've really been enjoying today's flight. So today we're going to go ahead and say hello to, we're going to go say hello to MSF's official. I know Allison's on there today, so that's where we're going to be checking her out. So guys, stay around for the stream, and I hope to see you all again soon. We'll be back on Sunday. We'll be back at the Bluegrass State, Kentucky. See you guys in Paducah. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.